The Paycheck Protection Program is hugely popular among small business owners surviving through the pandemic, but another benefit that could save them thousands of dollars is often overlooked. Known as the Employee Retention Credit, it was enacted as part of the CARES Act. Caroline Harris, VP of Tax Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, is here to discuss this tax credit, how much small business owners can save, and why they haven't been taking advantage of it. Hi, Caroline. Thanks so much for taking out the time to speak with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So as you know, everybody knows about PPP. It's super popular, but then when you talk about the employee retention credit, everyone kind of glosses over and it's not that well known. So what is it and how can it help small business owners?
Sure. So the employee retention tax credit was added as part of the CARES Act legislation in March of last year. And so what it was really designed to do was to provide a fully refundable payroll tax credit to encourage businesses who were struggling to remain operational because of the economic downturn to retain their employees. And it was also not only encouraging to retain those employees, but it was bringing liquidity to these small businesses by saying, we're going to give you a tax credit. We're not going to make you wait until you file your income taxes next year. We're going to do it every quarter against your payroll tax liability. And so I'll briefly cover what's in there, and then we can take a deeper dive on some of this stuff. So for 2020, when it was effective, it basically gave you a credit for every quarter up to $10,000, basically total for the year, 50% of $10,000 of qualified wages per employee. So that's the way it worked then. Moving forward, the Consolidated Appropriations Act changed things for 2021. The credit is effective only for the first 2 quarters of 2021, but it's been increased to 70%, so $7,000 per quarter per employee on $10,000 of wages. And there's no cap. That $10,000 cap has disappeared. And if you go over that, you get it. It's treated as any other overpayment of tax, and you get a refund.
Oh, great. So what changed? Why did they change it for 2021? And does that are there rules now that make it more available to small business owners?
I think they wanted to recognize that, perhaps there could be a smaller downturn, a smaller change in receipts, but companies would still be struggling. I think they realized they needed to make it larger, that's 50% going to 70%. And I think they realized that capping it was, limiting the benefit of it. So I think all those changes were done to improve the effectiveness of it and to help companies, small businesses retain employees, even if they're still struggling in the pandemic, but also give them some added liquidity. Say, you don't need to tie up this cash in taxes. We're going to give this back to you.
Great. So if you're a small business owner, how much can you save? Does it max out at $14,000 or is it per employee?
So again, of course, because we can't make anything super simple, the one rule for 2020 is you can save up to $10,000 per employee for up to 100 employees. Now, beginning January of this year through June 30th, so the first 2 quarters, you can save up to $14,000 per employee up to 500 employees. So larger dollar amount, larger number of employees. So a nice benefit there.
What if you have a PPP loan? Does it matter? Can you still take advantage of this?
It's a really good question. Originally, there was concerns about double dipping. The idea that you would take a PPP loan, cover that expense, a payroll expense, and then you would take the ERTC credit and get a tax refund. So the Consolidated Appropriations Act that we did at the end of December changed that. And they said, as long you can take PPP, you can also use the ERTC, this retention tax credit, can't double dip, can't be for the same payroll stuff. So you can't pay payroll out of PPP and then get a deduction, but you can get PPP, use it for other things, pay your payroll, and avail yourself of the ERTC. I want to make one note here. Unlike the other changes, that change is retroactive all the way back to the CARES Act date, so the March date. So that is true for all the time it's in effect now.
So why aren't they taking advantage of it? Is it just too complicated or what's going on?
Sure. So I think much like, a lot of times tax changes suffer from, I would say, a PR problem, right? When people hear tax changes, they don't generally go, oh, great, this is a positive. So I think when you're introducing a new provision into the code for relief, it's confusing. Taxes are confusing. And so there needs to be an education effort. People really need to understand what it is, that it's effective immediately. A lot of small business owners will go, okay, fine. I don't pay my taxes until next year. I'm not going to pay attention to this. So I think there could be a better education effort. I know for us at the chamber, we have done a tremendous volume of calls with our state and local chambers, with some of the other smaller trades around the country, educating about this incentive. And we've encouraged IRS and SBA to do likewise. The Small Business Administration and the IRS can push this out here. So I think that it's new. It's new in the middle of a pandemic. It's new to a section of the population of taxpayers who are struggling to operate their businesses, and they certainly didn't get into business because they liked paying taxes or wanted to deal with the tax code. So I think that's sort of the hurdles we see.
Great. And are there ways to maximize this? Are there any strategies you can employ to get the most out of this tax credit?
Yeah, and so I think there's a couple resources. Number one, I would strongly encourage folks. The IRS website actually has an excellent section of frequently asked questions. It really breaks down all the questions you've asked me here today. How does it work? Who's eligible? What's the dollar amount? Those kind of things are covered really, really well there. And it's in plain English. It's not, cites to the tax code. So I would encourage folks to familiarize themselves with that website and those frequently asked questions. Look, I think if you're a small business owner, you probably employ or pay once a year or somebody, a tax professional or a bookkeeper. Reach out to that person. Say, hey, I'm aware of this incentive. Not really my area of expertise. Can you help me, understand that more? And I would say if you don't have a CPA or a tax professional, there are great associations out there, the American Institute of CPAs or the National Association of Enrolled Agents. Those are people who are not CPAs, but who can do filings of taxes. Those are two great resource databases to find somebody in your area, who can assist you and help you better understand this incentive.
So finally, I know this tax credit ends at the end of June.
Mm-hmm.
Do you expect them to extend it, or is this it? We're done with this, take advantage now kind of thing?
Right. So we started this in the pandemic, and the policy reason, as I started out with, was let's help people retain employees. At some point, you get to a point and go, we hope we get to a point, the economy is recovering. We don't want to encourage people just to retain their employees. We want to encourage people to hire new employees. So I think the idea of the June 30th date is that hopefully we will be on the road to recovery at that point. And I think that I wouldn't expect it to be extended, because I think at that point, you're more likely to turn to a sort of a hiring tax credit. We have something called the work opportunity tax credit. It incentivizes the hiring of people who are in certain underserved populations. So veterans, disabled, things like that. And I think there's some thought that you could maybe take that incentive and make it work in this space. So I don't expect it to be extended, but I think that's a positive, because it means the economy has gone from needing to retain to growing once again.
Excellent. Well, this was awesome. It was really, really informative. And I want to thank you so much for taking out the time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Donna. I really appreciate it. Always happy to help.